A few months ago, I talked about the potential of the Rokket structure deck, and now that it's finally coming to the TCG within the next few weeks, I feel it's appropriate to finally discuss the new cards revealed. And so in today's video, we're gonna find out just why Rokkets are top tier after structured deck Rokket Revolt. Before we get into that, if you guys want any of the cards mentioned in this video when the structure deck comes out, or just any card in general, make sure to go down into the description and check out my TCG player affiliate link. It supports me immensely, so if you want to support me while buying cards at the same time, make sure to go down into the description and check out my TCG player affiliate link. With that, let's find out why Rokkets are top tier post structure deck Rokket Revolt. Okay, so this structure deck has 13 new cards, and I'll briefly go over each one so you guys get an idea on each card's impact in the new structure deck. Getting right into this, let's start with probably the most impactful Rokket to be released as of now, Rokket Tracer. Rokket Tracer is a level 4 Dark Dragon tuner with 1600 attack, 1000 defense, and it has the following effect. Quick effect, you can target one face-up card you control. You cannot special summon monsters from the extra deck for the rest of this turn, except dark monsters, also destroy that card. And if you do, special summon one Rokket monster from your deck except Rokket Tracer. You can only use this effect of Rokket Tracer once per turn. Oh my goodness, we have an actual good Rokket monster. So I think to understand how impactful this card is, let's take a look at the already established support in the archetype. We have a bunch of Rokket monsters. We have Rokket Synchron, which is a level 1 tuner with the only non-Rokket based effect, where Rokket Synchron basically revives a level 7 or higher Dark Dragon from your graveyard, so it actually has an effect. But the reason why Rokket Tracer is going to be the most impactful Rokket to ever be released is because it actually does something very substantial in the form of destroying something in order to get another additional body on the field. If you don't understand why this is so impactful, let me break it down for you. Rokket Tracer basically destroys any card, and then you special summon a Rokket from deck. And because Rokket Tracer is a level 4 tuner, that means you can synchro with the Rokket Tracer and whatever else you summon out from the deck. You can link with the monsters, you can use a fusion spell to fuse into the new fusion monster Borreload Furious Dragon, which I'll get to that card in a little bit. But Rokket Tracer by far is the most substantial and most impactful card to be released in this structure deck. It is without a doubt the best Rokket monster ever printed. The fact that it is a monster that puts an additional body on field is incredible. The fact is, if you normal summon Rokket Tracer and activate Dragon Shrine, you can pop that Dragon Shrine and summon another Rokket from your deck. If you activate any spell while Rokket Tracer is on the field, because Rokket Tracer is on the field, it will special summon another Rokket from your deck. And there are so many good uses for this card as well. You can synchro with it, like I said. You can keep it on the field and use a Topologic monster with Rokket Tracer. The fact is, this card helps so many different archetypes, and because of the existence of a card like Quick Launch, it just makes Rokket Tracer that much better. Basically, in something like Orcus, for example, you can play a Quick Launch engine with Rokket Tracer and some other Rockets, and from there you can use Rokket Tracer at the end of your combo to make a Savage Dragon, making your board that much better. There's a lot of benefits to Rokket Tracer because of its overall power, and it having the name Rokket to especially be used with something like Quick Launch puts this card over the top as by far the most impactful card in the structure deck. But there are other cards as well that make this deck so good. And another really impactful card in this structure deck is Absorouter Dragon. It is a level 7 Dark Dragon effect monster with 1200 attack, 2800 defense, and it has the following effect. If you control a Rokket monster, you can special summon this card from your hand. You can only special summon Absorouter Dragon once per turn this way. If this card is sent to the graveyard, you can add one Rokket monster from your deck to your hand. You can only use this effect of Absorouter Dragon once per turn. Absorouter Dragon is another incredible piece of support. Absorouter Dragon basically says, I can special summon myself and float into another Rokket monster. It's basically a Goki that's a special summon, which is incredible, especially because now we actually have something good to float into, because we have something like Rokket Tracer now. So Absorouter Dragon is also really strong with a card like Dragon Shrine, basically saying Dragon Shrine becomes another copy of Rokket Tracer, which is always really strong. In general, special summons that plus in some form are not easy to come by, or at least any special summon that gains you advantage after the special summon. We have cards like Speedroid Terratop, which is a good example of cards that gain you advantage from being a special summon, but usually we don't get cards like that, and so Absorouter being a card like that makes this card so good in the deck. And so with that in mind, I would say Absorouter Dragon is also incredibly impactful, whether it gets you access to a rocket monster from your deck, or focusing your deck more purely on rockets and not just the Guardragon package, and being able to abuse Absorouter way harder. No matter what route you take it, Absorouter is an incredible addition to Rockets. We have a few more rocket monsters in the deck. I'll briefly go over them. We have Silver Rokket Dragon, which is basically a rocket monster that has the same restriction as the other rocket monsters. When it's targeted by a link monster, you can destroy itself, but the special effect on Silver Rokket Dragon is you can banish a monster from your opponent's extra deck. Let's look at a card like True King Lithosagem. This card is banned. Obviously, it's really good because it destroys earth monsters. There are a lot of good earth monsters that trigger when destroyed, but the real reason it was banned is because it's so degenerate, being able to banish 3 monsters from your opponent's extra deck. That type of effect is very powerful in a game where we usually run a lot of one-ofs, and so Silver Rokket Dragon does something similar, and being such an easy rocket monster to summon and everything, it's pretty good. Next we have Rokket Recharger, which is actually pretty good if we have Striker Dragon, which I'll talk about in a little bit. Rokket Recharger says if a dark monster you control that was special summoned from the extra deck is destroyed by battle or card effect, you can send this card from your hand or field to the graveyard, then target one of those monsters, special summon one dark monster with a different original name from that monster from your graveyard. You can only use this effect of Rokket Recharger once per turn. While you control a dark monster that was special summoned from the extra deck, your opponent's monsters cannot target this card for attacks. So the main effect that applies to this card is when you use Striker Dragon. Striker Dragon basically is a link one that can destroy itself, which will then proc Rokket Recharger to basically special summon itself or any other dark monster with a different name from Striker Dragon in your graveyard. So with Striker Dragon, Rokket Recharger is really good. For right now, we can't use Striker Dragon, which means we can't really use Rokket Recharger that effectively. We have Quadborrel Dragon, which may see play in some strategies, but Quadborrel isn't really that great. Yeah, I'll read it regardless though. It's a link to Dark Dragon effect monster with arrows middle left, bottom center. It has 1000 attack. It's a link to. It requires 2 dragon monsters, including a rocket monster, and it has the following effect. You can discard 1 card, then target 1 face-up monster on the field. You cannot special summon link 2 or lower monsters from the extra deck for the rest of this turn. Also destroy that monster. Then, if the destroyed monster was a link monster, you can special summon any number of rocket monsters with different names from your hand and / or graveyard up to its link rating. You can only use this effect of Quadborrel Dragon once per turn. The basic purpose of Quadborrel Dragon is to essentially destroy itself. You can't special summon link 2 or lower monsters, but then you basically just reborn a bunch of rockets. This card's really good with a card like Booster Dragon because you can destroy the Booster Dragon, special 2, and then special summon 2 rockets from your grave, and then Booster Dragon will get its effect. It's really good in that sense. There's also other niche scenarios where Quadborrel is really good, but as of right now, I don't think Quadborrel will be that relevant. Maybe in the future, though, it could be pretty good, because it does have an interesting effect that I could see being played, but right now, there are other methods of using these rocket cards. We have Borreload Furious Dragon, which is a really strong card. It's a Dark Dragon Fusion effect monster, level 8, 3000 attack, 2500 defense. It requires 2 Dark Dragon type monsters and has the following effect. Quick effect, you can target 1 monster you control on 1 card your opponent controls, destroy them. You can banish this card from your graveyard, then target 1 Dark Link monster in your graveyard. Special summon it, but it cannot activate its effects this turn. You can only use each effect of Borreload Furious Dragon once per turn. So the reason why I really like Borreload Furious Dragon is because it has that grave effect that actually gives you advantage after it leaves the field. It's also just a good removal card. It can destroy itself and a card your opponent controls. And remember, you can also summon this off of something like Agripane, so you don't need a hard fuse for it. But this also means this is another super poly target, which could be really good. So there are a lot of applications for Borreload Furious Dragon. Agripane summons it, Super Poly summons it. In my opinion, I think Borreload Furious Dragon is so good, and that grave effect can come up. It just says it cannot activate its effects this turn, so if you summon a Borreload monster from your grave, not only are you given those arrows, you can still link with the monster, you can wait a turn and then have your Borreload monster be able to target a rocket monster on your opponent's turn. Borreload Furious Dragon has a lot of different scenarios. I'm not going to go too in depth on this card because this is going to be a long video regardless, but Borreload Furious Dragon is so good. Topologic Zeroboros is a new Link 4 out of the Rokket Revolt structure deck. It is a dark cyber slink effect monster. Its arrows are top left, top right, bottom left, and bottom right. It has 3000 attack, it's a Link 4, it requires 2+ effect monsters, and it has the following effect. You cannot summon / set monsters to any extra monster zone this card points to. Gains 200 attack for each banished card. If another monster is special summoned to a zone a Link monster points to while this monster is on the field, banish all cards on the field. Once per turn during the standby phase of your next turn after this card was banished by its own effect, special summon this banished card. Zeroboros is a really crazy card. It's basically kind of like a Black Rose. It banishes everything though, which gets around a lot of problem cards. Going second is really strong if you can resolve its effect. It will return itself to the field, making it better. There are quite a lot of applications with Zeroboros, but honestly, I don't see it being played right now. The issue is we don't really have a good enough deck to use Zeroboros in. If we were to play Zeroboros in a deck like Orcus, for example, you're losing a lot of resources. You don't get to keep your field spell on the field, so it becomes a lot worse. Zeroboros is a card that will see play. This effect is too disgustingly good not to be played. If you're playing against a stun deck, there are so many ways for Zeroboros to blow your opponent out because they'll have to wait a turn for Zeroboros to resolve. If they commit any card to the field, Zeroboros will nuke their field, and then it's really crazy in that sense. You can even just sit on Zeroboros, and if they summon anything to a Link monster zone, let's say you're playing against Salamangreat, and they need to summon a Mirage Thalia to a Bale Link zone, Zeroboros will nuke their field, and then Zeroboros will come back as another offensive threat. So if you can only sit on a Link 4, this is a really good option for that. So do I think Zeroboros will see play? 100%. This card's so good. But do I think it will see play right now? Maybe not. Next, let's move on to the spells and traps. Rapid Trigger real quick is a quick play spell with the following effect. Fusion summon one fusion monster from your extra deck by destroying monsters you control as fusion material. But it cannot attack except to attack monsters special summon from the extra deck. Also, it is unaffected by the activated effects of monsters special summon from the extra deck. You can only activate one Rapid Trigger per turn. Rapid Trigger is not bad. It can use rocket monsters you control. Again, Rokket Tracer is a really easy method of enabling Rapid Trigger, so you can actually use Rapid Trigger in order to summon Borreload Furious Dragon. But I have some gripes with this card. One, it's not searchable, making it just inherently worse. You don't want to have to rely on hard drawing stuff all the time. Two, it requires you to destroy monsters on the field, which regardless of Rokket Tracer being really easy to fulfill this requirement, it doesn't always pan out that way. Obviously, Rapid Trigger can clear your monsters if they're being targeted or something. While Rokket Tracer is an easy enabler for Rapid Trigger, that doesn't necessarily mean Rapid Trigger's automatically good. You still need 2 monsters on the field to summon Borreload Furious Dragon. So in that scenario, while Rapid Trigger does also trigger the rocket effects during the end phase, there's just better ways of triggering them, and so I feel like you'd rather just special summon Borreload Furious Dragon off of Agripane rather than using Rapid Trigger. So Rapid Trigger in the end, I don't really see it being that good. Maybe in a more pure Rocket variant, then Rapid Trigger will be amazing, but right now, maybe not as much. Zero Day Blast is the last decent to amazing card in Structure Deck Rokket Revolt. It's just a normal trap with the following effect. Tribute 1 Dark Link monster, then target cards on the field equal to its Link rating, destroy them. It's so easy to gain advantage off of this card. I think this is probably one of the most underrated and unspoken about cards in the entire structure deck. Because, let's take a deck like Orcus. If you're playing a more control-heavy variant, this card is the absolute nuts. You contribute Longyearsu, pop 3 cards, and then use Symbol on your opponent's turn, and then summon back the Longyearsu, or anything like that. You can even tribute something like Galatea and pop 2. There are so many applications for Zero Day Blaster. This card's incredible. I would not sleep on this card. This card will definitely be relevant in the future. I'll talk about all the other cards in the structure deck in a second, but I think there's one big issue with Rockets right now, and that is we don't have Striker Dragon. If you don't know what Striker Dragon is, let me read it for you. It is a Link 1 Dark Dragon Link effect monster with its arrow being middle left. It has 1000 attack. It requires 1 level 4 or lower dragon monster, and it has the following effect. If this card is Link summoned, you can add 1 boot sector launch from your deck to your hand. You can target one face-up monster you control and one rocket monster in your graveyard, destroy that monster on the field, and if you do, add that other monster from your graveyard to your hand. You can only use each effect of Striker Dragon once per turn. We really want Striker Dragon in the TCG for Rockets to be even better. The biggest issue with Rockets right now is we don't have Striker Dragon. Striker Dragon is an easy enabler to get Rockets out of your hand. It gives you a free spell for Rokket Tracer. You can even normal Rokket Tracer, link for Striker Dragon, get Boot Sector Launch, Striker Dragon will recur the Rokket Tracer, Boot Sector Launch will special summon it, and then Rokket Tracer can destroy the Boot Sector Launch to special summon a rocket from deck, and that's basically how Rokket Tracer doesn't need any other cards to be really good. Now, here's the issue. This card isn't coming out in the structure deck. It was a V-Jump promo in Japan, meaning we have no clue when we're getting this card. It's not necessary for the deck to be good, but we want Striker Dragon in the deck because it's just that much better for the deck. This card is so incredible, being able to destroy itself, enabling Rocket Recharger as well, it recurs rockets from the grave, everything about this card is really good, but we don't have it in the TCG, so we'll see how much of an impact that makes. But regardless, Rockets are still really good. I mean, we have Rokket Tracer, we have Absorouter, we have these two cards specifically, which are just so incredibly good that Rockets will probably be relevant regardless. Lastly, let me just brief over all of the other Rocket cards. Exploder Rocket is a new rocket that has the link targeting effect, but basically it will make each player take 2,000 damage. This card's awful except the fact that it's a level 7, so that's probably the only reason it'd see play. So maybe because it is a level 7 rocket, it will see play, but right now I don't really see it. Moral Supplier is a during standby phase effect, and it's a continuous spell, so you already know how bad that is. Checksum Dragon, when an opponent's monster declares an attack, special summon it, gain life equal to half its defense. It has 2400 defense, it's a level 6, maybe this will somehow see play, but I doubt it. This card just is not really that good at all. I think the only reason I feel it see play is because if your opponent's going for game through your board, you can Brotar, add Checksum, and that way you don't necessarily die against an OTK. So that's the only reason I'd see Checksum see play. Execute Protocols is terrible. It's a trap card that activates only during the battle phase, and it gives a monster attack. That's pretty bad. There's no reason you should be playing Execute Protocols. And that's actually it for the structure deck. Those were all 13 cards plus Striker Dragon. So now that we've talked about structure deck Rokket Revolt itself, why don't we talk about the Rocket deck as a whole and why it will be top tier? And to give one simple answer, it's Guardragons. The Dragon support has been incredible this year. We have new cards like the Guardragons, the Hieratic Link. There are so many powerful cards that make dragons so relevant, and that's awesome to think about comparatively to the past where dragons haven't been as good recently. But now dragons are just incredible, and with that in mind, Rockets are no different. This is probably going to be the culmination of the dragon typing for this year, and once this deck finally dies, I think dragons are gonna die with it, for now at least. If you want a more in-depth reason as to why Guardragons are just such a problem and so good in the game, make sure to check out my video in the card in the top right corner. But Rokket Revolt can also abuse dragons. Remember, rockets are all dragons, meaning you can use rockets with them. We just got the new Dragoonity link, getting us easy access to more dragons in the game by being a link to that can add Dragon Ravine to your hand. Dragons have gotten such a buff this past year, and I couldn't be happier for them. This is basically the year of the dragon typing. This year has been a huge year for dragon lovers, and so these cards are so good for the deck and in unison with the Guardragons. That's why Rockets are top tier after structure deck Rokket Revolt. Thanks for watching.